Multiple Raptors center trade targets have been revealed as the Raptors are in a tough spot, trying to jump from a rebuilding team into a competitive roster, and they only have one true center out there on this lineup, and Jakob Poeltl is currently dealing with injuries. So it has become very, very clear over the first 3 games that the Raptors need to do something about the center position, especially after losing Ulrich Sharpe, because if we look at what's going on, the first thing is, of course, all of the injuries that have been sustained to Jakob Poeltl. He's dealing with back issues. He's wearing the big face mask right now. He barely played during preseason, and it's made a lot of the fan base start to turn on the center, which I think is silly for right now. Again, if a larger sample size of poor performance happens, it's going to be impossible not to view Jakob Poeltl in a different light, but and currently, the injury situations has really affected his game, and he looks out of it. He's dropping basketballs, he's dropping passes his way, and right now, the guy, if we look at the actual stats, is averaging 5.3 personal fouls a game. You see down there at the bottom right, 5.3 personal fouls per game is absolutely an insane number. So this is something that is a product, of course, of all the injury situations and stuff, but also a product of how the Toronto Raptors are playing. And they are playing with very aggressive defense. All of our guards are out there within, inches of the offensive player, which does lead to some positives, right? It's the mantra that the Raptors organization is trying to put down. And this squad is trying to be disruptive defensively and stuff, but that leads to a lot of straight line drives, and that's leading a lot of people going full speed, full force out there at our centers right now. Jakob Poeltl's our only guy. If we look at the depth chart, right, the guy that can reliably play center. Immanuel is sometimes billed as a center, but clearly watching him on the court would be best apt out there at the power forward spot. But a lot of people are running downhill at Jakob Poeltl. It's leading to 5 fouls per game, and we need more depth out there at that position after losing Ulrich Sharpe. And some people are saying, Jakob Poeltl can't shoot. Yes, and that is something that is a realistic thing, but he's good at getting the dunker. And the Raptors offense right now has not been bad. We are top 10 in terms of offensive rating. Again, these advanced stats are a little bit, misrepresentative early on in the season, but the defense has been the clear, glaring issue in my eyes starting off this season, and the Raptors need to address that 5 spot. So that's why we're looking at centers. Here is the first guy on the list, and it is Nick Richards, who is the 3rd string big man right now for the Phoenix Suns. They just drafted Common Malawach. They acquired Mark Williams. So Nick Richards is the 7-foot center they have on their team that is kind of the odd man out with their current group. And if we take a look at his contract, he's an expiring contract, making just $5 million per year this year. And given the depth that they have at the center spot, would be a big man that could come in and have an impact, as a rim protector for this squad. Over the past few seasons for the Charlotte Hornets as well as the Phoenix Suns, Nick Richards has been around the 10-point per game range, which is very, very solid when he's getting a legitimate run. But you can see in this recent season, 25-26, those numbers have fallen off a cliff in terms of minutes per game, which has led to, of course, a drop in points per game production and things like that. So Nick Richards, for a large stretch, has averaged 1 block per game, can be a rim-protecting big man. Again, you're not looking for an insane 3-point specialist out of Nick Richards. He's not going to be game-changing in those avenues, but would improve the Toronto Raptors center depth, and that is what this team is looking for. And if you slot him into this lineup, then you can have Nick Richards out there protecting the rim when Jakob Poeltl is out of the lineup, and then when the likes of all of our guards, IQ, RJ Barrett, Gradey Dick, Jamal Shead, are into the grill out there of the the point guards of the other team, you have a big rim protecting presence out there at the center spot to anchor the defense. So Nick Richards would be the guy that I think is the most gettable given the Phoenix Suns' current rotation and logjam that they have at that center spot. However, the Raptors would, have to give something up in terms of matching salary, and we aren't talking about specific trade packages here, just revealing targets, but he is the most interesting target, in my opinion, except for the last one that we're going to discuss out here in this video. So, Nick Richards, definitely a really interesting free agent target, and probably gettable for this team. Who's next out there on this list? Well, if we take a look at the available guys, Goga Bitadze is a guy for the Orlando Magic, which would be a very, very interesting fit. Now, you might look at him and say, hey, this is a guy that plays for the Orlando Magic. They have a lot of centers and a lot of big man depth on their roster as well. So Bitadze could be a guy that's fairly gettable as well. If we take a look at his stats and what impact he can provide out there for this team, he's a 6'11 center, 26 years old, so about to enter the prime of his career, and a player that is very, very interesting statistically. For the Orlando Magic, this season 4 points per game, averaging 17 minutes per night, so a little bit more extra run for Bitadze, an actual staple of their rotation, but a player that has always been a positive in terms of the advanced stats over the course of his career in terms of defensive box plus minus. You can see it on the far right angle. Over his career, he's usually having 1.8 defensive BPM. So that's a guy that can come in, again, take some shots, just be a 5 out there if Jakob Poeltl is dealing with some foul trouble, that can reliably come in, finish around the lane, and play some defense. Now, Bitadze is a guy that probably would be tougher to get in terms of a trade. I think Nick Richards would be a player that the Raptors are more likely to actually get a trade with done from the Phoenix Suns. But Bitadze from the Orlando Magic, especially if they start struggling, they've had a couple tough losses to start off the season, is a very gettable guy out there on the trade market and would do what the Raptors need to fill that center hole. So Bitadze is a name that a lot of people are looking at as a fit, but we have more people that are out here on this list, and the next guy is Sharpe, who is a player that I really wanted the Toronto Raptors to go after out there this offseason. He ended up signing a contract, which I thought was shocking, a multiple-year $6.2 million cap hit. That is a steal for a guy that can block shots, protect the rim, be a lob threat out there for the Brooklyn Nets. And I am very interested to see what the Nets are actually going to do with a lot of the logjam players that they have. They have a lot of guys at the level of a Sharpe. Nick Claxton's still on that roster. They have a ton of players that just need opportunities to develop and stuff. They are trying to tank the heck out of this season. Jordi Fernandez is going to try to get them as competitive as possible, but Sharpe would be a player that I think would fit very, very well with this team. Unfortunate thing about Sharpe is he can't be traded until December 3rd, so it's going to be time. Again, you're not going to see any trades happen in October, but over the next few weeks, you could see the Toronto Raptors try to wait this out and then bolster their center depth. So Sharpe, interesting piece out there in the mix. The next guy that is on the list of trade targets is Robert Williams, who a lot of people might look at and be like, Ben, why on earth are you even bringing this guy up? He was injured his entire career. The guy's been injured. We take a look at his stats. I didn't even bring up his stats because it doesn't matter because the guy is rarely out there on the basketball court. But this move would be a very hypothetical move in terms of, hey, if he could be healthy, it's a cherry on top of this actual trade, because the Raptors have been widely talked about making moves in order to really get their contract situation, get under the tax cap, and Robert Williams would be a guy that trade would essentially facilitate that move, as Robert Williams right now is an expiring contract at $13.2 million, so that money comes off your books next summer and could add some flexibility to this team and give a player back to the Portland Trailblazers as they look to jump up to being a competitive team. They have Jrue Holiday on their squads. They have a very, very solid roster out there in Portland in a competitive Western Conference. So that's the style of trade there. And Chauncey Billups did say, of course, while Chauncey Billups is still the head coach, that Robert Williams III has been not been cleared for contact, but has been participating in non-contact stuff during training camp, is very happy with how he's progressing. So that was October 6th. We haven't seen many other updates for Robert Williams, but this essentially would be a salaried up trade and then a hypothetical that, he could have some impact out there on this Raptors team if it's rocking. So Robert Williams, that would be the logic, the thought process behind that move. And the final one, a bonus one that's out there, isn't even a trade, but a player that I am shocked is not on an NBA roster right now, and that is Bol Bol. Now, and given the highlights, given all the Twitter clips you see of the guy, you might think he's way better than expected, and everyone's confused why he's not out there in the NBA. So there must be something glaringly wrong if he hasn't been signed by a team. But yes, he does have his deficiencies, his shot selection sometimes weird. He turns over the basketball a lot for the center position. But realistically, if we take a look at Bol Bol's actual stats in terms of what he could do out there night in, night out for these teams, Bol Bol is extremely underrated, man. He is extremely underrated. The guy, statistically, even last season for the Phoenix Suns, averaged 6.8 points per game in just 12 minutes of action, averaged 0.7 blocks out there during that time, 3 rebounds. And if we're talking about defensive rim protection, a guy that can block shots, a guy that can have an impact out there in those areas, he's only 25 years old, and he shoots 34% out there from the three-point line. He's been very effective as a corner 3 shooter. He provides rim protection. He spaces the floor as well, which is some people have been calling for. And taking a flyer on Bol Bol, who you wouldn't even have to trade for. He is an unrestricted free agent right now. The Raptors would fit the bill exactly of what this team needs, and you could do it tomorrow. You can make this move essentially right now. And it's shocking to me that no team has actually picked him up, but that is what it is. Let me know what you guys think about these trade targets and, I guess, free agent target for the Toronto Raptors. You guys have been saying as far as subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.